Hey, everybody, it is Maria Boynton. Thank you so much for joining me for another edition of Atlanta Up Close. My guest today, none other than the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia, Ryan Buchanan. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yeah, it is my honor and my pleasure to have you in. A year and a half in, you were confirmed, what was that, April 2022, right?
And I started in early May of 2022.
So a year and a half in, how did it start for you, sir, and how's it going?
It started really well. As you might know, if you keep up with my office, we had some transition from our previous U.S. attorney to an acting U.S. attorney and then to me. And so it was important for me to get our office back to a smooth space. I believe that we are there and we are doing the work to make this district as safe as possible.
You are the chief federal law enforcement official in the Northern District of Georgia. What does that mean?
It means that I am the sort of in charge of federal law enforcement. So I work closely with our federal agencies across the district, FBI, DEA, ATF, Secret Service, Homeland Security, Treasury, to name a few. And we work to enforce federal laws on the criminal side. And then in the civil space, we represent the United States in claims filed against us.
Okay, everyone, we're talking to Ryan Buchanan, who, of course, is the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia, in studio with us. And everyone, thank you so much for listening to this edition of Atlanta Up Close. Now, we're going to get to some of the cases that we can talk about here in a moment. I want to know more about Ryan Buchanan. So where are you from originally?
I'm from Tuscumbia, Alabama.
Say that again.
Tuscumbia.
Okay.
It's a small town in northwest Alabama.
Okay.
About 4 hours from Atlanta, 2 hours from Birmingham. Went to Stanford University in Birmingham, Alabama. Played football there. And got my law degree at Vanderbilt University in Nashville. Clerked for a federal judge in Birmingham, and then went and worked for a big law firm in Charlotte and then Atlanta. And I've been with the Department of Justice since 2010. Started out as an assistant U.S. attorney in Birmingham, in the Northern District of Alabama. And then I was hired by Sally Yates in 2013 and moved over to the Northern District of Georgia, where I've been ever since.
Of course, we all are familiar with Sally Yates. She was one time in the office, as a matter of fact.
She was in the office for over 25 years or so. Sally was a U.S. attorney and then left the office to be the Deputy Attorney General of the United States.
Yes, she did.
So she has had a great influence on our office.
Okay, when you talk about those having influence on your life, let's talk about the people whose lives you probably and most likely and surely will after this show have influence over. When you talk to those who say, I want to be the next Ryan Buchanan, what do you tell them?
First, that's extremely humbling to hear that someone would want to sort of follow this path. And it immediately makes me grateful for those who forged ahead of me and allowed me to be into this space and to allow me to hopefully have the influence on others that folks ahead of me have had on me. And so I'd start with a place of gratitude. I'd start with an appreciation for the positive upbringing and influences and support that I've had through the years. I'd hope that I'm able to give that to someone else and sort of continue this legacy that I'm walking in. Certainly didn't create it. We often talk about sort of renting the spaces that we're in. I'm borrowing this space. I'm carrying the baton on this leg of the relay, but I do want to make certain that I create a space for someone else to have this experience.
And why is it so important to you to give back?
It's important because, without it, we just don't have progress. It would be a disservice for me to have the opportunity, the experience of this seat, and to not share it with others. And so that same benefit that has been bestowed upon me, I'm obligated to take care of it and then to hopefully bestow it upon others.
I want to know, when you get the word that President of the United States, Joseph Biden, is going to nominate you to lead the office in Atlanta for the U.S. District of Georgia. What does Ryan Buchanan do when he gets the word?
The way that process works, you hear that it may be possible, and then that possibility lasts for a long time, longer than you're sort of comfortable with. But you hear that it's in the works, and that is, it's awesome. It's a fantastic feeling to know that you may have the opportunity, that it's even possible. I never would have thought that years ago or even recently. But to hear that it's finally happening, that the nomination is going to happen, it is, I would say, it's physically humbling to know that I have an opportunity to lead a dedicated, talented group of public servants in the mission of keeping the people of this district safe, which is, it's a very important place in our country right now. And so the opportunity to be in a leadership role here right now is incredible. And so it is something that I pinch myself multiple times a day because it is a situation that is it's really fantastic, and I just cherish every minute of it.
Everyone, he's Ryan Buchanan, U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia, office right here in Atlanta, Georgia. Your office, when you talk about here and now, there is a lot going on. We're talking about gang violence and all of that. What's the working relationship between you and the Fulton County DA, Fonnie Willis? What is that working relationship between your office and hers?
So that working relationship is successful.
Okay.
We share some similar goals, particularly in terms of combating violent crime in our streets. We also share the goal of making certain that our young people are first safe, and secondly, that they're not involved in that violent crime. So over the past couple of years, we have worked well with the Fulton County DA's office on a summer program. It's a program where the Madam DA and I meet with our young participants in this program at the beginning of the summer. They go through a summer of programming in which there's a college visit. There are other sessions that address things like conflict resolution. We bring in some credible messengers so that they can speak with people who have lived the lives that they're living. Some mentoring, tremendous mentoring comes from that program. And then at the end of the summer, we have found that they've been in a better place. The overwhelming majority of them are not in trouble anymore. And so that relationship and that partnership has been really successful. It's a part of the Department of Justice's Project Safe Neighborhood program, national program aimed at reducing violent crime, not just through law enforcement and prosecution, but through intervention, through prevention. I mentioned the mentoring process, and the DA has been a great partner in that here in Fulton County, and we've had several similar relationships in other parts across the district.
When it comes to the YSL trial, do you have any input in that at all?
No, we don't have any input. That is a Fulton County case that's been charged, and there's no federal involvement in that case.
And of course, we know everyone. We had DA Fonnie Willis in here earlier talking about the case against the former President Trump. We are not going to get into that. I talked to him. I talked to the U.S. Attorney prior to this interview, everybody, and that's a subject matter that we understandably will not get into at the moment, right?
I appreciate that. Those are state charges, and it would absolutely be improper for me to comment on a pending state case.
Okay, everyone. He is Ryan Buchanan. He is the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia. Are you the first African-American in that seat?
I'm the third.
You are the third.
I'm the third. Actually, Larry Thompson was the first. Larry was appointed by President Reagan. And Larry went on to be the Deputy AG of the United States, the same position that Sally Yates held later. And then Rick Dean was appointed by President Clinton and had tremendous influence on the office later. And so I'm I'm the third African American to be the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia.
When we talk about influence, what are your goals being in this position? What do you hope to accomplish?
So it's great because my goals align with the department's goals right now. And we hear Attorney General Merrick Garland talk about these three things. First, upholding the rule of law, making certain that every citizen of our district, all 7.5 million people, is treated fairly, and there's one law for everyone. So upholding that rule of law. Second, advancing the public safety, making certain that this is a district or place where people feel safe, where people are safe. And then third, protecting the civil rights of those who live in this district. That's important. We are the cradle of the civil rights movement. This is an important place for us to uphold that mission. And I'm really fortunate to be aligned with the Department of Justice and having that as a top priority.
Everyone, he's Ryan Buchanan, U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia, and honor and pleasure to have you on Atlanta Up Close today. When we talk about, you talked about the civil rights violations, and we know, too, that you address gang violence, public corruption, cybercrime, narcotics trafficking. Fentanyl is a big issue. When you talk about dealing with matters that keep everyone safe, when it comes to drug trafficking, drug issues such as that, how bad is it, would you say?
So I am really grateful that you give me an opportunity to talk about it because it is really bad. We have seen the numbers of fentanyl poisonings, fentanyl deaths, and overdoses skyrocket here in this district over the past couple of years. What's particularly troubling is the rate of incident for our young people, folks as young as age 10 and 11 through 19. That rate of poor outcomes and death and overdose is really in a troubling space. Yesterday, I spent the day with the DEA. They hosted a family summit up in DeKalb County, and we talked and met with families, parents who have lost children to the opioid epidemic. And it is a centering moment. It grounds it, and it makes it a reality that we all must work to limit. And so we have cut some public service announcements. We hope to get those out, and we really want to raise awareness. We really want our young people to understand that they just cannot experiment with pills. We have seen fentanyl kill people in a single dose. And there's no way to understand what that dosing is like in any individual pill. We know that drug dealers are making pills that look like prescription medicines, and they're really not. They contain fentanyl and other drugs. And taking one pill, experimenting with one pill, can result in death. And so we want to get that message out. We want that word out. We want our young people to understand it, the danger of it. We want parents to engage their children in a discussion about it. And we want to see that decrease here in this district. It's a national problem. Last year, the United States had more deaths from drugs than any other year. And unfortunately, we're on a pace or trajectory to break that record this year. And so we want all of your listeners, everyone, to understand the dangers of pills. If your pill, your medicine, if it doesn't come from a doctor, a pharmacist, or some healthcare professional, if you buy it online or from someone else, you have no idea of what's in it. And so you shouldn't take it because it could be a situation that kills you.
The parent-to-child conversation, what should that be like?
Hopefully it is very direct. The drug dealers of today don't just sort of lurk around in shadowy back alleys. They're online. They're on social media. And so every time that a child has a cell phone, there's access. And so parents need to be vigilant about the people with whom our children communicate, the pressures that they feel in terms of their peers and their colleagues, and make certain that our children understand very clearly that you cannot experiment with pills. It is just too dangerous right now. And that's the message that I want to communicate to parents. That's the message that I believe is the best message to have our young people push away from these pills and hopefully from the opioids. In the past, that danger was addiction. Now the danger is the lethality. And so we're not saying, hey, if you take these drugs, you'll wind up addicted and your life will be a series of struggles. That remains true. But what is different now is that the lethality, these pills can kill you without you becoming an addict. And that is both frightening and really, really troubling.
You are a role model. You do know that, right?
I appreciate that.
So we got folks listening to you right now. For those in the younger, community, you are standing here, Ryan Buchanan, U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia. We're talking about the parent-to-child conversation. You're saying it should be direct. But what do you say if you have a group, when you go and you're talking to groups of students and youth groups, what do you tell them?
In respect to
drugs. We're going to talk about drugs.
You can't take pills. That's the long and the short of it. And that reason is simple. You take one pill and you may die. And it's a stark message, but it's one that I'm obligated to give. Spending the day yesterday with those parents, their sorrow is palpable, and it is inspiring in a way that you want to join in and hopefully have a few more sets of parents not have that experience. It's really fantastic to see them working so hard, not just to vindicate the experience of their children, but also to honor their legacy and to hopefully prevent someone from sharing that experience.
The guns now, where are they coming from?
The guns are coming from all over the place. There are lots of guns just in our jurisdiction. Our focus is on making certain that those guns are not in the hands of people who shouldn't have them. And then secondly, that those guns are not doing or part of acts of violence in our community. We do have had a wave of violence in Atlanta. Over the past couple of years, we believe that we're seeing some change on that. We're seeing some impact that is slowing up. As other leaders have said, one death from a gun is still too many. And so we'll continue to work through that. We're happy to work with young people, hopefully to develop some conflict resolution skills, to show them that there are consequences to gun violence, but also to show them that there's awesome opportunities ahead, and life is more precious than the risk of impacting that future with gun violence. And so we want fewer victims, we want fewer people perpetuating that violence, and we'll continue to work both in a law enforcement perspective and a prosecutorial perspective, but also in an intervention space and in the prevention space.
That being said, making sure guns don't get into the wrong hands. You have jurisdiction states that are allowing folks to have guns without background checks. Is that not adverse to what you are trying to accomplish?
So part of my job is understanding sort of where my lane is. And there are those who write legislation, and there are those who write and develop policy. My goal and my lane is advancing public safety. And so that entails making certain that when these policies and laws are written, that we work in a way that pushes the public safety. And so for those who are prohibited by statute or prohibited by policy from possessing firearms, we want to make certain that that possession does not happen. And I'm fortunate to have a dedicated group of public servants who believe that and work tirelessly to that end. And we have great partners both in federal law enforcement and in our state and local law enforcement who assist in that effort.
Okay, everyone. He is Ryan Buchanan, U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia. Your cases run the gamut. I mean, Bob Page, of course, who leads your communication office, and he's always been so helpful in that office. He sends out the information, and I'm like, man, they are all over the place. I mean, you got everything from healthcare fraud. I mean, and you guys saw a lot of that during the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic now. So has it slowed in terms of fraud cases and scam cases when it comes to that?
To the COVID fraud, we were very, very active in that space. And it is to be expected when the federal government rushed to assist people and to assist businesses and that money flowed out into the economy. It's to be expected that there was some fraud. It's unfortunate that people took advantage of programs that were designed to help small businesses and to help people in that space who were dealing with the fallout from the pandemic. And so we were very active. We were one of the top 5 districts in the country in prosecuting those particular cases. Fortunately, they have slowed a bit. We'll continue to work on the outstanding cases that are there. But we are happy to sort of move beyond those COVID cases and move back into some other traditional spaces that are really, really pertinent in this district. You mentioned healthcare fraud. Atlanta has a booming fintech community. We estimate that 60 to 70 cents of every electronic payment sort of cycles through a business that operates here in the Northern District. And so that is something that we want to keep those processes safe. We want to make certain that those companies aren't targeted for cyber attacks. And then at the same time, we want to make certain that the citizens who put that money into that system can rest assured that that money is not going to be the subject of fraud.
And if we're hearing about it, everybody, of course it's happening. And a lot is happening right here in our yard, in our neck of the woods. When we talk about crimes involving the exploitation of children, your office would address that as well. How's that going?
It is another busy area. We take serious our responsibility to lift up the safety of our most vulnerable people. And that includes our children. And so we work, again, on the prevention space of informing and educating our parents and our schools of what internet safety looks like, but then prosecuting as best we can those who would attempt to exploit our children through internet or cyber means. So that's another booming area of practice in our office. Those are worthy cases, and we are working diligently to make sure that our children are safe.
Not sure if you ever take the work hat off, but when you do, what does Ryan Buchanan do?
I'm an avid sports fan.
Okay.
I'm working through the Braves' defeat. We had such a promising season, and it is gone too soon. And so we transition more into the Falcons. We look forward to the Hawks having a bounce-back season as well. So I enjoy sort of our local sports scene. I enjoy our local restaurants and just all that this wonderful district has to offer.
All righty, everyone. We've been talking to Ryan Buchanan, U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia. It's obviously a great pleasure for me to sit back and talk to you and to meet you finally. The work's coming out of your office. Thanks for always communicating with us what's going on so we can share it with the public. And we do in our newscast, of course, in our public affairs programming. Odyssey Atlanta appreciates you, Mr. Buchanan. Thank you for taking the time to come in.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure to meet you as well. You're quite the legend. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity to spend some time with you. And I hope that we can do it again soon.
And we will. There's a lot to talk about. Everyone, thank you so much for listening to this edition of Atlanta Up Close. And of course, you always know you can listen to on the Odyssey app. I'm Maria Boynton.